Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie McGrath, editor of ForbesWomen. President Donald Trump announced sweeping global tariffs last week, and within this environment, small business owners who depend on foreign countries for their supplies are wondering, what does this mean for my supply chain and my revenue? I'm joined right now by someone who is asking those very questions. She is Alyssa Chambers. She is the founder and CEO of Nova Essence IO, and she is here now. Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Maggie, for having me today. It's a pleasure being here.
I know as a founder and CEO, you're very busy. You founded your company in 2020. It became an LLC in 2023. So you've been in business for a few years. Can you tell us, before we talk about what's happening right now, just a little bit about Nova Essentials IO?
Of course. So Nova Essence was founded on the basis of creating a transformative wellness experience where we're beyond just our products. We're about founding the principles of self-care and ensuring that women from all walks of life takes the time to prioritize themselves because as women, we prioritize every other people in our lives. So Nova Essence is that reminder to say, take care of yourself so you're able to pour out into others. And Nova stands for a natural, optimistic, vivacious ambiance, just giving that reminder to just keep that positive mindset and spread the light everywhere we go.
When you talk about spreading the light, keeping a positive outlook, what exactly are the goods that you are selling to consumers through your company?
Of course. So we sell aromatherapy candles that are affirmation based. So the affirmations on every candle is that reminder when you light it of I am loved, I am blessed, I am confident, and I am enough. Those are our four candle bases that we sell. We also sell aromatherapy mist that also has the same affirmation as the candles. And along with that, we do body butters and wax melts. Our wax melts are called mellow melts. So it's like a little tiny cute wax melt that, you mellow out, it melts down. And it's also that like active reminder of like, as the wax melt is melting and like soothing out, that's your reminder to soothe out as well. So every product ties into the concept of taking care of yourself, reminding yourself who you are, especially in those moments when you do probably feel a little bit low. You just light the candle, say, I am loved, and you repeat it to yourself and you just believe it.
So, your company is all about lowering anxiety, feeling loved, and we're in an environment where anxiety is a little high. Can you talk about your experience specifically? We've known since basically the election that President Trump wanted to institute tariffs. How have the last few months been for you leading up to last week? Were you doing anything to prepare, or were you waiting and seeing what the actual policy was going to be and therefore didn't know until last week?
So I'm always in the mindset of preparation. So with the current administration and everything, and what's going on in preparation for that. And in my mindset for my business, Delta Essence being in a phase of growing and wanting to expand more, this is where the concept of leading, it takes a village. So leaning on my community more. And I actually launched recently a crowdfunding campaign to lean on my community to see people that believe in the vision of Nova Essence and the fact that we're not just a product, we're about that reminder to take time, take a moment to breathe, right? Like you said, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of like uncertainty that's happening around us. So in this case with Nova Essence leaning on our community, it's like the crowdfunding is an aspect where we're preparing for any type of cost increases. So that way, while we're leaning our village, if we raise funds or when we raise funds, that money can be used so we don't have to impact our consumer, meaning that where we're sourcing our supplies from, those extra funds coming in can help with restocking where we can keep our actual product price at the same level and not have to increase it based off of the current environment. And then on the other flip end of observing and waiting, right? So I feel like right now, as we're preparing, we're also observing. We're looking to see and not acting emotionally to say, okay, well, all of this is coming. Supplies are going to increase. Oh my gosh, like we already went through inflation. So this is the expectation that I've already had in my mind. And strategically, I'm like, okay, let's not respond emotionally. Let's observe, see what's happening right now with policy. Things can always change for the better, right? So there's always that hope in the back of my mind. But in the event of these are the steps I'm doing, so the customer and the consumer, my clients, are the last person impacted.
We'll get back to that consumer impact, but I want to talk more about where you source from. As I noted at the top of the conversation, there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of countries that are the recipients of these reciprocal tariffs. And in conversations I've been having with sources, it's been a lot of talk about Vietnam, Cambodia, China, right? Countries that help provide a lot of consumer goods to the US. Where are you specifically sourcing from? Is there one or two countries that you are looking at and whose tariff rates you are most concerned by?
China. I feel like China at this point in time, that's where I supply most of my candle jars, like the candle wicks and everything. All of those like minute details when it comes to like making a candle. I'm sourcing that from China right now, and being the fact that the international cost per unit when it comes to the jars versus US price is a very big difference. And just to give you some metrics, like for example, just going to go back a little timeline. So in 2020, when I first started, a pack of 12 candle jars from my supplier in China was about $15, right? $15 to $18. We fast forward 2023, inflation and everything goes up. Expectation is that, okay, it went from the same pack of 12 glass jars going from $15 to $18 to now $21. Now, 2025, here we are with tariffs and everything adding on. The fear is that the price of the same pack of 12 candles, and this is just a 7-ounce candle jar, is going to go from that $18 price point to now a $25, $30 price point. And that's only just 12 candles, right? My typical restock supply for like the inventory and demand that I get is between 30 and 50 candles a month. So imagine having to do like the increase in price between paying $18 for a pack of 12, and that's just for a set of candles, and then doubling that to then create 50 of those. And just to compare, like that's the China supplier price. When I look at like Nixie or Candle Science and how much they charge for like a single candle vessel being like $12, that's already mind blowing to me, because now I'm like, okay, when I think about the strategy of in the event that these tariffs hits China really hard and the price of those goes up, what is my next strategy to see what other suppliers there are in US, right? In the US. And either way, it does work out more expensive US based supplies. Makes a pack of 12, the same pack of 12 that I was talking about, is $67, right? Compared to me paying a pack of 12 right now at $21, right? So that's just something, giving an idea of like how the tariffs will impact the supplier from China. And then if I would have to then think about going into US, how much more like that would cost me.
So you're looking at, from that $15, almost more than 4x increase if you were to go with an American supplier, which part of the thesis behind these tariffs is bringing jobs and manufacturing back to the US. Or it sounds like on the upper end of the tariff math from your Chinese supplier with those tariffs, that would be 2x. So it's a huge increase either way that you're staring at, but the lesser of two evils would technically then be to stay with the Chinese supplier.
Exactly. And then another concern is like, okay, there's a cost, but then there's also shipment, timing, delays, and all of that happening. And to give you a real life example, I had an event this past weekend. I put an order in for my supplies. It was like one last minute order, but it was in advance where I usually get for like 2 days or so. My order didn't come in time, so I didn't have any supplies like to restock one of my specific candle scents for my pop-up shop that happened this past Saturday. And it was a little disheartening because I was excited to like make the candles and have that offering for the crowd that I was going to vent at. But because of the delays and the timing of everything, I was like, okay, is this something that I'm going to also have to factor in when it's time for me to restock, how much time in advance I would have to put these orders in? Yeah.
And I'm sure that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but given the founding date of your company, I imagine this is not the first time you've had to navigate supply chain issues. So was there anything you learned during 2020, 2021, when everyone was talking about toilet paper and supply chains, that has been useful in this moment, or does this moment feel entirely different to you?
This moment feels entirely different. I think the biggest difference is like it's happening all at once. Like I feel like before, and then also bringing it back to like when I started my business in 2020, I didn't have the same demand and like services and products that I offer now. So being that we've grown from where we were to where we are, and there's more demand, there's more products, that is a real concern where I'm like, okay, delays is not the same how it was back in 2020 with this toilet paper not being on the shelf or not having any like supplies that way. So it's definitely a different scenario, I would say, in this case, when it comes to tariffs and supply chain, logistics, all the above. Yes.
So you are crowdfunding in an attempt to not pass that cost on to the consumer. So are you in your head committed to not putting any additional cost on the consumer, or is it going to be a little bit here, a little bit there to make up the revenue?
Right now, I'm very much committed to not passing any costs on to consumers because me personally, I, as a consumer, especially when it comes to groceries, look at the price of eggs, right? You know, needing to buy eggs and then think about the suppliers, where they're getting in, what's going on in that space, and like how much the increase in eggs. I don't want to be the person where my price is already at a standpoint of 20 plus and then having to add on to that and then losing clients because they're like, oh, they have to choose between a crate of eggs at $12 and a moment of self-care at $20, right? So typically right now it's between crowdfunding and strategizing partnerships in my local community, whether it's other small businesses where we can start sharing costs, right? If it's some other person in the wellness community that I have a network and partnership with, any event that I have, any party favor service I have, figuring out ways to basically share the wealth or share the cost in this case, so that way the consumer is the last person impacted. Like it would have to be a very dire need in order for me to like adjust my price to impact the consumer. It's to the point that I'm like literally willing and able to give like free shipping for people just to give people a break. I think we're in a time, like you said, anxiety, all this uncertainty, but we're also in a time where people just need a break. There's been so much happening so quickly. And if I can give people a break by not changing their prices and giving free shipping, that will be awesome.
Among the founders and entrepreneurs and small business owners that you talk to, do you think your perspective is the standard? Is this an approach that others are taking, or are you zigging where others are zagging?
So my perspective, I found out recently, is not what other people's perspective is when it like this whole concept of it takes a village. Usually the primary answer when I asked about like the other businesses, they're like they're just gonna have to adjust their price, they're gonna have to figure out a new supplier, and then it all leads back to eventually impacting the consumer, right? I'm taking a different standpoint of like how can we avoid that impact to the consumer? What other ways are partnerships and leveraging our network can we use in order to not impact the consumer? And as small businesses, I think it's really important for us to come together instead of be apart, stronger together than apart. And that way we can strategize to say, okay, um, I'm a candle maker and I do wellness events and workshops, and I have a partnering studio, for example, like Killer Body Fitness. They're a unique boutique, unique all women's gym, right? So coming together and joining forces with them to say, okay, I'm having an event. Usually it takes about X, Y, and Z amount, like $500 for a venue. But being that I have a personal network with the owner of that gym, she's not doing it for $500. She's like, she envisions the same vision I have. She's also trying to give that same relief to people that I am as well. So we come to meeting of the minds and we're like, okay, what's an average way we can decrease this cost and coming to an agreement of $200, right? Same thing with the mobile candle cafe of trying to find some place to park the van that I'm purchasing for my mobile candle bar. Same owner of the same studio. I was looking for a parking space for it. These parking spaces are very expensive. Found out 450 a month to 500, $600 a month. Gave her the spiel of Nova Essence and my business and what I'm trying to do. And she had the same reaction. Instead of charging 300, she gave me $100 discount just in the belief of what we're aiming towards together. So that's just saying like it takes the village, community building, and stronger together.
That's an important mindset in any moment of trouble, but I think especially now. And I'm wondering, you are a female founder. You have what I imagine is a predominantly female clientele. Do you feel like female founders and female consumers are being disproportionately impacted in this moment?
Well, yes, I do. If you think about the fact that there's not that many female-owned businesses already, like that's something that like female-owned small businesses. So that's something that is already disadvantaged. So then you take that piece of it all, and then you're put in this environment of tariffs and having struggles of funding your business. Like funding businesses is always a main topic of like entrepreneurs in their mind, right? Like how are they funding their business? Are they bootstrapping? Are they reaching out for help? Are they getting investors? So definitely, I feel like in the female entrepreneurship community, I have seen in other parts of my network that people are, you know, they're re-strategizing, they're readjusting for the fact that they're unsure of what's the future is going to hold for their business because of like the struggles they're already seeing, the decrease in their clients because of the current environment that we're living in. So it's going to be an adjustment factor, I feel, for female entrepreneurs and female-owned businesses. But this is just the beginning. This is just another challenge to overcome. And that's something that I keep in my mind. Like, this is one other challenge that will be an obstacle overcome. And there will be another story to tell for another day.
That is a refreshing perspective in a moment when a lot of the interviews I've been doing have included the words catastrophe and terrible and anxiety, which I've used here. But Alyssa, before I let you go, I do have to ask, is there anything else you would like to share with the Forbes audience about your perspective as a small business owner in a moment when global tariffs are about to take hold?
Yes, my favorite quote, where there's a will, there's a way. Nothing is impossible to a willing mind. So that is something that I stay true to in my business practices, my professional practices and personal practices, like life itself, that this is another challenge to overcome, another obstacle. And if you are willing and able, and for like, you believe enough in yourself and what it is that you're doing, you're going to be able to push through this.
Alyssa Chambers, founder and CEO of Nova Essence IO. Thank you so much for joining Forbes and talking to us about your experience. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Maggie. It was a pleasure speaking to you all.